meeting of the Planning and Zoning Committee of the Birmingham City Council. Today is Wednesday, July 21st, and it is roughly 3:30 in the afternoon. We are here to hear 4 cases today, and if the staff will, we do have meeting minutes. We have the February 17th, April 7th, April 21st, and July 6th meeting minutes to approve.
Madam Chair, I'd like to offer a motion to approve the minutes from those dates.
I will second that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And that passes. And then we have item 3 is our zoning cases. So
I'll read those, Councilor Abbott.
oh, okay.
Okay. So this first case is ZAC 2020-36. It's in the Glen Iris neighborhood, and it's an application to change zone district boundaries from O&I Office and Institutional District to C2 General Commercial District in order to construct a new multifamily development filed by Robert A. McCann, representing the owner, HCP Mid-City LLC, for property located at 1110 Beacon Parkway East, and it's situated in the southeast quarter of Section 11, Township 18 South, Range 3 West, and it's also in Council District 3. Proposed use is a new multifamily apartment development. Proposed Beacon Park Apartments will be a single multifamily building, 4 stories high, containing a mix of studio 1, 2, and 3 bedroom unit apartments. There will be approximately 275 units total in the complex. The building will include amenity area, a parking lot, and parking garages. The total building height will be approximately 60 feet. The apartment building will be constructed on the peak of the hill to provide sweeping panoramic views of the city to the north. The long-range land use plan identifies the property as general commercial. This general commercial district is designed to allow for areas serving citywide regional trade area, including shopping, entertainment center that offers range retail surface establishments. Uses in the district include leisure, entertainment uses, high-density multifamily, schools, churches, neighborhoods serving public uses. Office uses with ground floor retail are encouraged. This district is intended to be accessible by auto, but should be designed to accommodate pedestrians and bicyclists, provide interior circulation between properties, and appropriate landscaping to counter heat island stormwater impacts. The proposed rezoning request is consistent with a long-range land use plan. The applicant's proposed site plan shows 353 parking spaces. The parking requirement comes to a total of 343 spaces based on the number of units provided. The applicant meets the parking requirement for the site, and additional spaces proposed should comply with engineering guidelines for excessive parking spaces when development includes parking in excess of the maximum. Then impervious paving systems are required for those spaces which exceed the maximum number allowed. The city's stormwater staff recommends that any new construction or redevelopment would have to comply with the post-construction ordinance and zoning parking requirements. Birmingham Department of Transportation states that all driveway sidewalk permits will be required. Any new construction or redevelopment must comply with BDOT requirements. After reviewing the traffic impact statement, BDOT concurs with its findings of no improvements necessary. The Alabama Department of Transportation requirement must also be met for this project. The city engineer reviewed the geotech report and concluded that the recommendations of the report are sound. We need to make sure the designer and contractor adhere to the recommendations. Fill slopes on the north side of the crest will be difficult to stabilize since the existing slope is unstable material, already exceeds the recommended 2-to-1 slope. We need to require that existing material is benched prior to placing fill. We also need to make sure that the drainage is handled in a manner that is not going to have a concentrated flows directed at the walking trail and residential properties below. All landscaping must comply with the requirements of the zoning ordinances laid out in Chapter 6. The Glen Iris Executive Committee Association held a meeting on January 15, 2021 to review the proposed project and chose not to make a decision. Based on the fact that they have a number of questions they would like answered, the applicant met with the Neighborhood Association on February 18, 2001 to answer questions and discuss the project. Then the Glen Iris Neighborhood Association held a special call meeting on April 12, 2021 to vote on the request. The vote was 4 to approve, 47 to deny, 4 abstained. This property is located in the north side, south side framework plan area. The framework plan for this area is in progress. Implementation committee has not been formed. The applicant's rezoning request is consistent with the future land use plan. Staff recommends approval of the proposed zoning request, subject to the following Q conditions. The developer must maintain a clearing limit as depicted on the site plan, and no building permit shall be issued without a subdivision case being approved that combines the property into one lot. The Zoning Advisory Committee met at its regular scheduled meeting on Tuesday, May 18, 2021, to review the applicant's rezoning request and voted to recommend approval with the following Q conditions, and they are the same as the ones that I read on the staff recommendation. And that concludes our report for this case.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gambrell. Is the applicant here? You please come forward and fill us in on any additional information that you have or any responses you have to the community's concerns.
Thank you, Council. We have...
Oh, and please introduce yourself and tell us.
Yes, thank you. Ryan Bork with Rise Real Estate. We are the developer for the project. I know, Councilperson Abbott, you've heard our presentation several times and information on it. Just a point of clarification, we have reduced the number of units on the site to 259 at the moment, and that will reduce our parking requirement to the max minimum of 320 spaces. So adhering to all of the zoning requirements and design criteria that have been put out forth. Again, just excited about getting a project in the Birmingham neighborhoods and moving forward. If there are any questions that you have directly, we have not made any changes to our commitment of connecting to the Vulcan Trail system or encroaching on the neighborhoods do not disturb wooded area to the north of our property, on the north side of our property.
Okay, since I don't see a lot of people from the community here today, and since the vote at the neighborhood was 47 were opposed and 4 approved and 4 abstained, some of the concerns were the stormwater runoff, which, you know, they're concerned about stormwater runoff, traffic, and litter. So can you just address
Yes, ma'am.
those items?
As far as the traffic, we've provided a traffic study that shows, and we provided that report to the city, that it shows that there's no impacts to the existing traffic system. For the stormwater, we've continued to develop our stormwater system, both above ground and in ground in the detention area, to exceed the current standards for the stormwater runoff. So in existing, essentially everything is run off to the pervious, and so we'll be capturing a lot more of the existing runoff that would hit the street and put it through our system that would then hit the detention pond.
Okay, so Mr. Gambrell, if you could just, I think you're the one that would fill us in. Is there a requirement that all of the additional runoff over what is coming off the property right now is to be retained on site?
I believe that's the case. I mean, there's a new stormwater ordinance that's, you know, post-construction. And so it not only does it have a volume component, but also has a quality component that they're to adhere to. You know, I mean, that's about the best I could say. I mean, you know, we have a new stormwater ordinance. It's in place and it's going to be enforced. And from my understanding, you know, there's a post-construction requirement that they, you know, handle their stormwater, both in volume and quality. You know, I mean, that's the best I can speak to it without, you know, it'd really be better for a stormwater person to talk about that.
Well, we're fresh out of stormwater, people.
I know.
Obviously. But,
I understand.
But the community did have a concern, and of course the developer has done an excellent job with dealing with the situation with being in a slide zone in the north face of the property, but all of the property owners who voted against the project were on the south side
Right.
of the mountain, which has a lesser slope, but is already experiencing problems with city accommodations of stormwater and traffic now, and so they perceive that this project is going to cause trouble. But of course, it's zoned O&I right now, and so if you built an office building there, obviously you're going to have traffic and runoff and all the same problems. So, but I guess the bottom line is the stormwater that's created by this project has to be retained on site, on their site, not on the neighbor's site, and so stormwater should not be a big problem, and if it is, the city will enforce its ordinance.
That's right, up to a certain, storm, I mean, if there's a storm, a 1,000-year storm where you get 5 inches of rain in 2 hours or something like that, the system might not handle that.
You mean like we're having right now?
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I mean, I don't know exactly what the standard is. I'd have to look at the ordinance again, but, it's designed, the ordinance is designed to handle a certain storm. And of course, in developing the ordinance, the consultant did, use historical data, from our city and ran simulations, consistent simulations over and over for I don't know how many iterations. And that's how they ended up determining the factor that would, determine exactly how much stormwater you're supposed to maintain. And there may be situations where there's a huge storm that goes way over that volume, that would potentially cause a problem. But it would be above and beyond what the ordinance requires, And so, but I think the ordinance is designed to capture, like 80 percentile. I don't remember the exact percentile of storms, but it would capture most storms that occur by a large margin. And like I say, it'd really be better to talk to stormwater folks about that to get the precise numbers and information. And if you'd like, we go to the city council in 4 or 5 weeks, whatever. I'm sure we could have that staff here.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
Yeah, we can
Okay.
definitely have them here to make comments.
Okay, Mr. Bork, do you have any professionals who come with you to provide additional information on the traffic study or anything like that?
Not at this time. Being on the agenda this late, we got here.
Okay, well, do you have questions?
I was just going to ask to carry it over until they can get their people here, if that's what is that where we going?
Well, I think the city council meeting is probably the best place to hear from all those extra people. I just thought
agree.
there are a lot of people in the audience that I don't recognize, and I thought they might be, but there's a gentleman back here with his hand going up, and so
That's
maybe.
one of my colleagues that's also with Rise Real Estate.
Good afternoon. My name is Brian Sedeth. I'm with Rise Real Estate. Just to inform you, we have provided those traffic impact studies. They have been reviewed by the city engineer. And again, I believe that was part of your assessment that was within reason, that the impact due to this development was not going to require any additional upgrades to the systems. We have also been meeting with the city engineer regarding stormwater, so we'd love to have them at the next meeting. I believe they've already started reviewing it as well. We wanted to make sure that we're going over and beyond to try to meet these concerns so that we were able to answer the questions that were brought up. So.
Yeah, because at the city council meeting, there's a likelihood that some of those residents will come to the public hearing and they'll want to hear from the people who are the experts,
Absolutely.
So,
and those representing the city would be the best experts to place there.
okay, thank you. Any other questions? We do need to hear from the public, if any members of the public are here to make comments regarding this case. Seeing no one.
Seeing no one, Madam Chair, I would at the proper time like to move it to the full council and take it from there.
With our recommendation?
With our recommendations,
Okay,
yes.
well, I'm going to have a hard time seconding
I know,
that,
I
but I
know,
think
I
that
know.
we should send it with no recommendation.
Okay.
That would be my thought at this point, since
Well,
there's only two of us.
Madam Chair, I move that we send it with no recommendation.
I'll second
to the
that.
coun- It's been moved. Oh, now it's your meeting.
It has been moved and properly seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So that will go to the full council on August 3rd. at the regular council meeting. Okay, so we're ready for our next case. Thank you
ma'am.
very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, the next case on the agenda is ZAC 2021-1. This is in the Oxmoor neighborhood, and is an application to change zone district boundaries from MXD Mixed-Use District to D5 Multiple Dwelling District in order to construct a new multifamily development along Lakeshore Parkway, filed by Andrew Phillips, representing the owner of the UAB Research Foundation for property located at 2800 Milan Court and situated northeast quarter, Section 31, Township 18 South, Range 3 West, and that's located in Council District 7. Proposed use is a 294-unit multifamily development. The current zoning, MXD Commercial Use Group 3, allows the following uses. All uses allowed in Commercial Use Group 2 except residential, building contractors, light manufacturer use, provided uses do not create any danger to health or safety in surrounding areas. Let's see, wholesale sales, shipping, receiving, auto repair, auto sales, animal hospital, broadcasting station, other like uses. The applicant's proposal is to construct a new multifamily development along Lakeshore Parkway. The plan will consist of 19 standalone buildings providing 294 new residential units. 110 of those will be single bedroom and 184 will be 2 or more bedroom. The site will also include provisions for private amenities for residents. The city's long-range land use plan identifies the property as general commercial and planned development. This general commercial district is designed to allow for areas serving a citywide or regional trade area. Uses in the district include high-density multifamily, school, church. Planned development is designed for allow for a compatible, complementary mixture of residential, office, commercial, cultural, institutional, governmental, and industrial uses in large planned developments. The proposed rezoning request is consistent with a long-range land use plan. The applicant's proposed site plan shows 437 parking spaces. The parking requirement for multifamily is 1 space per 1 bedroom unit and 1.5 for 2. Based on the design of this development, the requirement is 386. The applicant's proposed site plan shows a total of 437. Therefore, they're going to have to deal with a city engineer on either pervious paving or some other green infrastructure to offset the excess parking from the maximum. All landscape must comply with the zoning ordinances, Chapter 6, landscape buffering and screening. Likewise, the city stormwater staff reviewed the applicant's proposal and concluded a conceptual meeting with the stormwater staff should be scheduled as early as possible in the design process, and civil stormwater and soil erosion control permits will be required. The Birmingham Department of Transportation states that all driveway sidewalk permits will be required. Any new construction or redevelopment must comply with BDOT requirements. The applicant has submitted a traffic study for this project. The Oxmoor Neighborhood Association met its regular scheduled meeting February 8, 2021 to review the proposed project and did not take a vote on the zoning request at that time. The applicant and the neighborhood agreed to meet again before going to council. The neighbors have concerns about proposed project and would like the current zoning to remain. Oxmoor Neighborhood Association held a special call meeting on April 12, 2021 to review the proposed project and voted to approve the proposed rezoning request. The vote was 8 approve, 0 to deny, with the condition the applicant add another exit, ingress, egress point to Lakeshore Parkway. This property is located within Southwest Framework Plan area. The Framework Plan was adopted on May 2017, and an implementation committee was formed. However, they are not currently active. The applicant's rezoning request is consistent with future land use plan and has merit for approval with following key conditions. The proposed development shall comply with Oxmoor design guidelines and be approved by Oxmoor Steering Committee. Proposed development shall include an ingress egress point on Lakeshore Parkway. The Zoning Advisory Committee made at a regular scheduled meeting on Tuesday, May 18, 2021 to review the applicant's rezoning request and voted to recommend approval with the same Q conditions as mentioned. And that concludes the report.
Thank you. Is the applicant here?
Good afternoon. My name is Ingram Tynes, Tynes Development Corporation. I'm the developer for the project. We built a project in Greystone about...
Can you pull that mic down a little bit closer?
Closer?
Yes, thank you.
We developed a project in Greystone 5-6 years ago that was very well received. It was a two-level. It was mainly two-level construction with stone and very attractive. And so when we got this large site, it's 28 acres, we want to do kind of a low-density multifamily project. So we have a combination of those same buildings, very similar design, coming in here, and then we'll have one 3-story building with an elevator in it. We'll have the pool and amenities in that 3-story building. But the neighbors could actually go out and kind of kick the tires. They could go see it and say, this is nice. And I think that at the end of the day won them over, and so they all approved it. They did create a condition that we needed to have a secondary exit, which we agreed to up on Lakeshore on some land we're going to acquire from USX. We are going to take down the UAB building, which has been a kind of a problem for them. It's got some mold and other issues, environmental issues, and Shoal Engineering is doing our engineering. We did a traffic study. We didn't think there was a traffic issue before, but with the secondary exit, it's really cured. And I think the neighbors saw that quickly, and we're excited about it. We've done a lot of development in that corridor, and we think that the corridor needs it with all the job formation that's going on right there.
Okay, thank you. Sir, did you have anything you wanted to add, or are you supporting Mr. Tynes?
I'm supporting Mr. Tynes. If you have any questions,
Okay.
answer.
No, Madam Chair, I think I'm familiar, so I'm good.
Okay. I don't have any questions either. I thought the information from the staff was very thorough, and I'm sorry, I know I sound muffled. I did want to ask a question about the stormwater, the language in the stormwater that is very different from the language in the stormwater for the previous case. And since the staff put this in here, it says the city's stormwater staff reviewed the applicant's proposal and concluded a conceptual review meeting with the stormwater staff should be scheduled as early as possible in the design process, and civil/stormwater and soil erosion control permits will be required. That language was not in the previous one, and these are similar types of projects where you have a piece of property that's going to be developed with a whole bunch of apartments and parking. So I know you can't answer questions about stormwater, but there doesn't seem to be consistency here between the cases.
Yeah, as I was reading, I thought the same thing, to be honest with you. And so, but, I mean, I think that, both statements are accurate. They're going to have to comply with the post-construction ordinance. It would benefit the applicant to meet with stormwater staff early in the process to do a conceptual review of what they plan to do. And likewise, in both cases, they're going to have to get, the same permits. Now, they'll have to get a soil erosion control. They'll have to do the civil construction as well as the stormwater permit. So, I mean, both statements are accurate. You could put both of them together, and, it would be this, So, I don't know exactly why they're a little different. I'm guessing they were provided by stormwater, or is there something different to report there?
Councilor Abbott, we actually use word for word what the stormwater staff gives us.
Yeah.
So we might need to have a meeting with them and find out why they gave us two different statements, but we include their comments direct from their civil engineer.
Yeah, it just seems that consistency
I agree.
would be a good thing. I can't think of any time when consistency isn't good. And
Right.
knowing that on this case, we're not having a lot of controversy. On the other case, we are having a lot of controversy, and so there's no point in just inviting trouble.
Yeah, no, I agree.
And the stormwater folks, I guess y'all need to alert them that stormwater, is important to people.
And I think that if we do go with, it'll be, like Tim said, a combination of the two statements combined together. But we'll definitely alert them to that. Thank you for pointing that out.
Okay, thank you. I don't see anything else in here that I was questioning last night when I read this over again. So Mr. Hilliard, do you have a motion
Yes, I do. Madam Chair, I'd like to move this to the full council
with the Q condition?
with the Q conditions.
Okay, I second that motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Did I ask, I'm sorry, I did not inquire if there were any members of the public here to speak. I apologize. I don't see anyone jumping out of their seats.
Is that moving forward with a favorable recommendation?
Yes.
Yeah, so we have voted, and that passes, and we'll send it to the full council with our recommendation.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good luck.
With the Q conditions. Now we are on to item 3.
Yes, ma'am. This is ZAC 2021-12. It's in the Kingston neighborhood, and it's an application for a change in zone district boundaries from CB1 Contingency Neighborhood Business District to C2 General Commercial District, filed by Magad H. Alamari for the property located at 4700 Richard Arrington Jr. Boulevard North, which is situated in the northeast quarter of Section 20, Township 17 South, Range 2 West, and is also located in District 4, Council District. Proposed use is an event center. The applicant is proposing to convert one unit of an existing building into a private event center. The existing building is 14,264 square feet. The applicant is proposing a commercial space to host events, weddings, or any other celebratory occasions. The facility will include open space for tables or chairs, a kitchen to hold food brought in by a third party, a changing room, and restroom facilities. The hours of operation will be 8 a.m. to 12 a.m., and this space will be used for private events only. The applicant plans to rent the other 2 spaces out as commercial retail spaces. The city's long-range land use plan identifies the property as mixed-use low. Event centers are not allowed in mixed-use low. Therefore, the proposed rezoning request is not consistent with a long-range land use plan. The site plan shows a 14,264 square foot building divided into 3 units. The proposed event center would be 4,624 square feet of gross floor area, and the 2 proposed retail spaces are 2,040 and 7,600 square feet of gross floor area, respectively. The parking requirement for an event center is 1 space per 100 square feet of gross floor area, and for general commercial, it is 1 to 300. Therefore, the required amount of parking for the property is 78 spaces. The applicant's site plan shows 56 parking spaces. Therefore, the proposed site plan is short of the parking minimum required by 22 spaces. The applicant will need to do one of the following: provide 22 more parking spaces on site, or to enter into a parking agreement with an adjacent property owner to provide the additional parking required, or 3, apply for a parking modification from the Zoning Board of Adjustment. Event centers is only permitted in C2 as a special exception. Therefore, if rezoned, the applicant will need to apply for a special exception with the Zoning Board of Adjustment prior to start of operation. Additionally, the property is within 200 feet of a residential zone. Therefore, per the zoning ordinance, the hour of operations must be limited to 7 a.m. to 12 a.m. The city's stormwater staff recommends that any new construction or redevelopment would have to comply with the post-construction ordinance and zoning parking requirements. The Birmingham Department of Transportation reviewed the site plan and stated that while no new construction was planned, if the rezoning is approved, they would like to see a condition added that the applicant make ADA sidewalk and streetscape improvements along the right-of-way frontages, specifically an ADA ramp on the corner and street trees planted in the verge, or that area between the right-of-way and the sidewalk. I'm sorry, the roadway and the sidewalk. The city's landscape architect reviewed the proposed site plan and stated that if there are no major changes to the exterior, then the applicant is not required to add any additional landscaping. Any alterations to the exterior would need to comply with all landscaping requirements in the city's zoning ordinance. The Kingston Neighborhood Association held a regular scheduled meeting on Monday, June 28, 2001, and voted to approve the proposed rezoning request with the following Q conditions. The vote was 8 to approve and 0 to 9. The Q conditions that they proposed were closing time to be no later than 1 a.m., and I think it's proposed to be 12 a.m., and then no alcohol to be served. The neighborhood stated that they supported the rezoning request for the following reasons: the applicant's willingness to comply with the neighborhood request and his promise to work with the association. This property is located in the Eastern Area Framework Plan. This plan has not been adopted. However, the draft plan identifies the property as mixed-use low. Therefore, the rezoning request is not consistent with the proposed plan. Implementation committee has not been created at this time. The applicant's rezoning request is not consistent with the future land use plan. Staff does not recommend approval. The Zoning Advisory Committee met at its regular scheduled meeting on Tuesday, July 20th, 2021, to review the applicant's rezoning request and voted to recommend approval with the Q condition, to maintain the Q condition of no alcohol to be served. And that concludes our report.
Thank you, Mr. Gambrell. Is the applicant here? Please come forward and state your name and address and what it is that you're planning on doing.
Majid Alamari, 5509 Overton Road. I'm just trying to rezone it for event center.
Okay, and what kind of events are you planning on having, or do you know?
Is wedding and birthdays.
Weddings and birthdays?
Yes.
Okay. What kind of efforts are you going to make to keep sound from being a problem, since this is in the middle of a neighborhood?
The building is soundproof. There is no sound outside.
Oh, it's already
Yeah,
soundproofed?
yes. So the sound doesn't even come to the next rooms also.
Okay.
That's good.
Because my experience with these places has been that people like to put live bands in
No,
them.
not,
And, you know, the neighbors just have a fit.
no. I'm pretty understand about the neighbors' concerns.
Okay, that's good. And then there is the issue of the long-range land use plan that this is not consistent with, but that is not a question for you to answer. Is there anything else about your operation that you would like for us to know in support of your rezoning?
No.
And I assume you own the whole building.
Yes.
What will go in the other two? Do you have plans for the other two units?
Not right now.
Not yet. And for the staff, is there a reason that the maps that we have don't match each other? You know, if you look at the, I guess it's Google Earth, it shows a different building from what our online mapping shows.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So, what's the deal, y'all?
Yeah, there must have been some changes over time. I think that the planimetrics that you see on our GIS map, you know, are probably a little outdated. And so those building, you know, there's many times where you'll have a demoed house or something like that that still shows up. And I think it's probably a similar condition here. This building at one time obviously has been modified.
Yeah, it looks like they tore off a
Part
third of
back
one of
this
the
thing
buildings.
At some point, yeah. And for what reason, I don't know, but, yeah, the Google image is the accurate depiction of what the building looks like.
Okay, so that's the most recent.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay,
Of these two
thank you.
maps, for sure.
Councilor Hilliard, do you have any questions or comments?
No, so far I like the fact that the neighborhood has not opposed it and they agree with it. So I think, I would, at the proper time, like to move it forward.
Let me ask, I guess I need to go ahead and bring this up. We were discussing this Q condition, which, you know, typically, you know, the council would regulate this through, you know, the fact that they're saying no alcohol to be served. And so, you know, number one, it's going to be very difficult for zoning to enforce that. And then the second thing is that, you know, does the council want to regulate that aspect of this development through zoning, or would they prefer to do it through a liquor license? You know, typically that's handled through liquor license. And so it's a little unusual. It'd be difficult to enforce. And then the third thing is that I think technically by law, even if they didn't have a liquor license and they had an event that was BYOB, that would be legal by the state law. As long as it's, you know, it's being brought, it's not being served or being paid for by the client.
But you have to have a license for that, too. I think you do.
Not if they brought in their own.
Not that I'm, and Julie, you know, Attorney
I
Bedard.
know up at Vulcan, they had to get a license to allow people to bring in alcohol. So,
Well, you can't bring, if there is a license under 86,
I'm sorry.
Julie Bernard with the Office of City Attorney. Under ABC regulations, you cannot, what they call brown bag, which is what we call BYOB, you can't brown bag if there is an alcohol license on the premises. So if you have an alcohol license, you can't. ABC's position would be is if there is no alcohol license, people can BYOB. Under Birmingham's ordinances, we prohibit drinking in public. So if it's a public event and people are bringing in alcohol and it's open to the public, then the people who are drinking would be in violation of the drinking in public ordinance. If it's an entirely private event, you know, a wedding or birthday party or something like that where people are, you know, it's a set guest list, it's not open to the public, there's not charges for people coming in or anything like that, that would be a private event and would likely not be subject to the drinking in public ordinance. So in that case, you know, somebody could bring in alcohol and, you know, have it at their private wedding. But if you were having some of the things that we've seen at event centers where people advertise and invite the public to come in, then that would not be allowed.
So if the caterer brought the food and the booze, it would be okay?
No, because then it would be a
This would
sale.
only be-
The caterer is being compensated. ABC board and the city looks at anything where there is compensation, even if it's not directly paying for a drink. If you rent the building and part of that rental relates to there's going to be alcohol there, then a license would be required. Or if there was a caterer who is coming in, who's selling, who has sold their services for food and beverage service to whatever party it is, there would be a sale of alcohol and a license would be required.
Okay, so BYOB would only apply to people who have it in their pocket or their purse or their brown bag or their cooler.
Right, or say the bride and groom, bought a case of wine for their guest or something like that. That
Champagne,
right? For a
it's a wedding. Champagne.
Right. For a private, for an entirely private event. So, like I said, as I mentioned to staff, there are some different layers to consider when you talk about the alcohol licensing. But generally, Birmingham, unless you're in an entertainment district, if you're in a public place or at a public event, even if it's a private place, but it's an event open to the public, then the drinking in public ordinance would kick in.
Okay. So, since the neighborhood based their vote on no alcohol being served, if we are incapable of putting a queue condition on that says that, then we probably need to send it back to the neighborhood and tell them that we have an issue. That would be my thought.
Madam Chair.
And I don't know that you can't do it.
Yeah, as I told staff, I can't say necessarily that we can't put it on there. Usually what we have done, usually it's been addressed by saying no bars or taverns, or, we queue out the uses. And it's not impossible to put conditions on zoning. It's just a question of, if we say, it may be a question of the wording. The wording may be okay. No service would mean he can't sell alcohol. Somebody can't come in and serve it, but a private event could be YOB and not necessarily, maybe they would violate it by serving, but the specificity to me is not quite there. And I think, staff, as we discussed, it's kind of hard to know for enforcement purposes. As Mr. Gambrell pointed out, it's something that's usually regulated through other laws rather than zoning.
So you wouldn't want a wedding without champagne, as long as it's not sold.
Sir?
No, I was just thinking, you don't want a wedding without the champagne.
Right. Yeah.
But as long as it's not sold, but
Right.
a private event.
Right.
If it's a
Right,
private
and
event and it's, then,
Yeah. And the ordinance says the recommended queue condition from the neighborhood says served. So, if a bride and groom bring a few bottles of champagne and pour it for their guest, is that served? Is that, that's where I'm saying, is that what's intended to be prohibited? Is that what we're going to try to enforce? I mean, if they open their own bottle and drink it themselves, they're not serving it to anybody else, but, or is the neighborhood intending to prevent the business from serving? I think there's a question to the specificity of it.
Yeah. And since there are no neighborhood people here, we don't know what their thought process was or is or what their expectations are.
But I would imagine from all the neighborhood meetings I've attended when it comes to things like this, they're meant so.
Well, they meant they didn't want a bunch of drunks in their neighborhood. That's basically what it means. I mean, it's when you get down to the bottom line, residential people do not want bars like we had the problem a few weeks ago because they ruin the quality of life for the citizens who live in the neighborhood. And this is basically, a residential neighborhood. So, you can see why people don't want what we had a few weeks ago to occur in their neighborhood.
There was a neighborhood representative at ZAC last night, so,
they probably felt like they said everything they needed to say. Maybe they'll come back to the council meeting and say it again.
I got you.
Okay, any other questions from members of the committee, or is anyone in the audience here to speak to this item? Unless you're under the seats, I don't think so, but. Okay, so we're ready for a motion.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we move with whatever neighborhood and queue conditions that's been given, move to the full council.
Okay, well, I'm not in agreement with that because this rezoning request is not consistent with the long-range land use plan for this site, and the staff doesn't recommend approval. But my personal thing is I don't vote for things that conflict with the long-range land use plan. So I will not second. If you want to make a motion that we send it with no recommendation due to that fact, then
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we send this with no recommendation to the full council.
I'll second that. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So we will send this with no recommendation and August 10th. And if y'all can get hold of the neighborhood people and just tell them that we need a clarification by the time it hits the council on August 10th, that would be I think, a good thing. Okay, we are not exactly batting 1,000 here, but thank you very much, sir, and we will see you on August 10th at the council meeting, and we are ready to move ahead to item number 4.
Yes, ma'am.
On our agenda.
Item 4 is ZAC 2021-14. It's a citywide ordinance, and it's a proposed amendment to Title I, Chapter 7, Section 14 of the City of Birmingham zoning ordinance filed by the Department of Planning, Engineering, and Permits. The amendment adds the word structurally to the non-conforming sign section. This word is included in the legal non-conforming uses and structures section of the zoning ordinance, Title I, Chapter 9, Article 7, Section 3, and was inadvertently left out of the new sign regulations that were adopted in December of 2020. And you can see the actual change here on Section 14. Non-conforming signs shall be amended to read, change, and modification. A non-conforming sign or sign structure must conform with this ordinance if it is structurally altered. Reconstructed, replaced, expanded, or relocated. A mere change in a copy is not an alteration or replacement of purposes for purposes of this subsection. The Zoning Advisory Committee met at a regular scheduled meeting on Tuesday, July 20th, 2021 to review the request and voted to recommend approval. And that concludes the report.
Do you have any questions?
I have no questions, Madam Chair.
I do have a question.
Okay.
What is the difficulty that is being created by not having the word structurally in our non-conforming sign section.
Right. So, you know, a structure, a sign, a building is legal non-conforming. And so what we're going to tell somebody is they can't structurally alter that building or sign. That's what we've always said. And if you do that, you affect the legal non-conforming status, right? So you can't structurally alter, say you have a billboard that they want to put digital face on it. In order to do so, they have to reconstruct what it's standing on. So they got to add bracing, they got to add structure for that thing to be up there. Well, we're going to say that you're changing the legal nonconformity of it, and then it's not allowed. So it's not allowed to structurally alter a building or a sign to further its useful life. And so, I mean, it's a tenet of the ordinance. It's been in there for many, many years. We've been successful in the courts with it in cases where somebody wants to take down an old something that's legal nonconforming and replace it. Well, you can't structurally alter it in order to do that.
Okay, so,
Chair.
yeah.
Without the word structurally in there, it just reads altered. And you could argue that just repainting the pole or something could be an alteration. I mean, there could be arguments. This adds some clarity for staff, where there would be things that might not have to go to ZBA, under other circumstances. And structurally, the structural alteration on legal nonconforming, that's found in case law, past case law related to nonconforming uses in general. And it provides, some definition to it. We've, had some discussion, and from staff, from the departmental, viewpoint, they could be referring a whole lot of cases to ZBA that ordinarily would not have gone to them because of some alteration that doesn't affect the structure. So this helps tailor what is being handled.
It would be great if we could get rid of all of them. And so anything that we could do to make them all go away would be the best thing for the city of Birmingham and keep our city from looking as ugly as it looks with all of these mostly abandoned non-conforming signs still littering up our neighborhoods, probably especially Mr. Hilliard's.
The new ordinance does, allow to deal with some of those issues. I mean, it's still pretty new, so we've not gotten into, implementation of all of the pieces, but it does now, define abandoned signs and give some ability to begin to handle those. There's sort of a weighing here. There's, again, the way it's defined, we no longer differentiate between a billboard and a sign, an on-premise. The on-premise, off-premise distinction is gone. And so it's a pole sign, so that could be your sign at your business identifying your business, or it could be a billboard somewhere. So this does kind of bring it all together, and it is creating issues, tensions about how to deal with some of these things. It does address the proliferation of new pole signs that would have ordinarily been an issue under our on-premise, off-premise billboard distinctions. But this also affects people who are addressing signs at their business. And, if there are other pieces that we want to take on, I think taking it on directly and transparently is the best way to do it, if there are other things. But the new ordinance does address the issues. This would just be where there are some existing signs to allow changes to those signs that don't affect the actual structure, the support of the sign, which the city has always allowed. And there's even some case law in Alabama that it dealt with one of those tri-vision, the rotating, the signs that have the rotating components so they can do 3 different messages. There was a case out of Mobile where the court found that wasn't an expansion of a non-conforming use, even though it expanded their ability. It was still within the same space as the original sign. It unfortunately didn't get to whether or not there was any structural issues with that change. But the Alabama Supreme Court, ruled in that case in favor of the sign. So this is just kind of being consistent with everything, although we are moving forward with the new ordinance that does have an impact on the ability to bring in new signs or to make structural changes to things that already exist.
Yeah, because I would like to see our focus be on getting rid of the proliferation of signs that make our cities so ugly. Aesthetics has a lot to do with whether people want to come to your city. And we have a lot of aesthetic problems with signs. So, long term, I would like to see us come up with ways to get rid of them.
Right. And I think staff is still working on how some of those implementation pieces are going to happen with the new ordinance, which would include addressing the abandoned signs. Now that we have a definition, the prior ordinance didn't really have a definition of what was abandoned or dilapidated or whatever terms might have been used. It didn't really define it, and this ordinance does, which includes not having had a message on it, I believe, for some period of time. So that now they've got something with some meat where they can go and say, you don't have a message on the sign, it's abandoned under our ordinance. It needs to come down unless you show some reason, why not. I can't remember the exact provisions, but that's there.
Okay, well, I just wondered what that one word was doing for us, and now I understand, so thank you. Mr. Hilliard?
Madam Chair, I move that we send this to the, have this go forward to the full council.
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So that item passes and will be on the council agenda on
August, we'll set the public hearing August 10th.
August 10th. Okay. Okay, thank you. We are to old and new business. Is there any? Okay. Then we are to item 5, one of my personal favorites.
Wow. Madam Chair, I move that we end the meeting.
Adjourn. I second. All in favor say aye.
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 All
So
right,
thank you.